Alright, so Sweet Home Season 3, which is actually the final season of the whole series. So before I actually talk about Season 3, I want to give my thoughts on Season 1 and Season 2, because back then I wasn't actually doing reviews, so I thought I'd give you a quick overview of what I think about Season 1 and Season 2. And then when I'll talk about Season 3, and then I'll give you my overall thoughts on the whole series as a whole. So without further ado, here's my review. Actually, before I start this review, I want to drop a spoiler warning because I will be going through the story because I'm going to recap everything and I'm going to summarize everything from literally from the first season to season 3. So so I'm going to recap everything. So if you want to go into this knowing nothing, go and watch the whole thing first, then come back and watch this video. So yeah, that's the spoiler warning. So click off the video now if you don't want to be spoiled. Otherwise, continue watching. So basically what the premise of this show is, basically people start turning into monsters. So basically when they turn into these monsters, they take over the world and they start, killing humans left and right. So basically it's almost like like a zombie apocalypse in a sense, but it's not zombies, it's monsters. People turn into monsters. So in season 1, basically what happens is there's a group of survivors that are trying to survive inside a hotel. In their hotel, they're trying to survive. So they put the whole building on lockdown so to prevent all these monsters from coming in. And what happens is within the hotel, some people start turning into these monsters. So basically the symptoms are if your nose is bleeding, like bleeding, I'm talking about like a tap, like it bleeds like a tap, and you start hearing voices and the eyes go black. Basically, that's the symptoms they get before they turn into these monsters. Now, I actually want to talk about the main character. Now, to let you guys know, I am very bad at remembering Korean names. Like even back in my Taekwondo years, I can never remember Korean names because they kind of all sound similar to me. So yeah, I can never remember their names. But in the future, because I will be doing more reviews on Korean shows, now I will do a better job in the future to try to remember their names. But as of right now, like I find it very hard to remember the names. So I want to talk about the main character. So basically what happens to him, he basically starts developing symptoms. Now, I'm not going to go into his full story because I have to touch on major spoilers. But yeah, so basically he's slowly turning into a monster. But for him, it's very slowly, slower than everybody else, right? But he starts developing symptoms like his nose starts bleeding, his eyes starts going, he starts seeing, like he starts hallucinating and stuff like that. So basically what happens, because he's slowly turning and the other survivors start realizing he's got these symptoms. So basically what happens is he starts taking the risks of basically he's gonna go throughout the hotel to try to rescue survivors, but he's taking the most risks because obviously he's slowly turning into a monster and the other survivors can see that. So they kind of don't trust him, but because obviously they don't trust because he's turning into a monster, but he's taking the most risks to rescue people. But because for them it's like, when they're looking at him, he's going to turn into a monster anyway. So, he might as well go out there and rescue people, like go into the hotel. Because in the hotel, in the rooms, there are creatures, like there are monsters in the rooms because some people have turned into monsters. So he's basically going to go in there to like not only fight the monsters, but rescue people from the hotel rooms. So in a sense, he kind of becomes their protector, but he's kind of still dangerous, if you guys know what I mean. Because he's like showing symptoms and there is like hints here and there where the monsters kind of starts taking over a little bit, but he kind of comes back to his center. So he is dangerous, but he's trying to protect them, if you guys know what I mean. So basically he becomes their protector because obviously he's the only one that can fight these creatures, right? He's the only one. But basically, yeah, like I said, he becomes their protector. Now at the end of the season, what happens is they actually get raided by bandits, right? So they gather all the survivors up and they're basically their hostages, they hold them at gunpoint and everything. But what happens is that one of the bandits is actually like a mutant. He's basically a mutant between a human and a monster. And basically what he can do is basically his hands can turn into like these tentacle things to where basically he can stab people with it. He kills people with it, right? So basically, yeah, he reveals that he's a monster, yeah, and he basically, he kind of goes wild. So what happens is the main character, he actually, he tries to protect them from this new threat, right? So he actually does become a hybrid between the two himself, which basically, through the whole show they basically spell it out for you. He basically becomes a hybrid, but his arm, the main character, his arm, it becomes like this. It transforms into like this long thing with spikes on it. It kind of looks like a wing, but yeah, it's like this basically spike where he like swings it around and stuff like that. But anyway, he fights this new threat, and because he wants to protect the survivors. Now he does manage to take him out, but what's revealed in season 2 is that the villain, he can actually transfer into another body. He can move into another body, but he does move into a body of one of the survivors. But he's basically that survivor. He's basically dying, but he takes over his body, right? Now in season 2, what happens is that basically there is a short little team up between the main character and that villain. Basically, they team up to where the villain tells him that he was experimented on and that he wants to rescue the other hybrid humans that they got captured in like this government facility, right? He wants to rescue them. But as you can imagine, basically when they go to rescue them, basically the whole thing goes south because, the villain, he's basically a psychopath, right? So as you can imagine, he basically, the villain, he basically destroys the whole facility, right? He destroys everything. And he fights the main character again. But this time the villain actually beats him. And it looks like that the main character has actually died, right? He does actually look like he's died, right? Actually, the main character in season 2, he's barely in it. He doesn't come until, I think, about... Actually, I would say half of this season, the main character is missing, which actually, the writers, the people that wrote this show, it's actually pretty ballsy that the main character is literally missing for half the season. It's pretty ballsy. So what happens is after the main character, in a sense, dies, right? What happens with the other survivors is they end up going to a stadium to where they mix with other survivors, right? There's other survivors there and the military is basically safeguarding them, right? So it is at this point where there is actually 3 main branching storylines happening. But look, there are other storylines happening, but there's 3 main branching storylines that I'm actually going to talk about, right? So you have the soldier storyline, which is basically, they're trying to protect the stadium and the survivors, and they're going out and scavenging for food. You have another storyline where one of the girls from season 1, one of the young girls, I think she was around high school age at the time, but some time has passed since then. She's basically looking for someone. She leaves the stadium to look for someone that's basically protecting her in the shadows, in a sense. And you have the other storyline, which is basically one of the survivors from season 1. She basically gives birth to a daughter, which is basically a hybrid in between a human and a monster, right? I'll get to that later, but I want to address the soldier storyline first. So basically what happens in the soldier storyline is basically, they're trying to protect, the stadium and the survivors, right? But they also go out and search for food and supplies and stuff like that. But what happens is that the doctor, or should I say the scientist, what happens is he wants to go into a government facility where he wants to get something. Now, I can't remember exactly what he wanted to get or what he wanted to see, but he basically wanted to get to this facility. Now, they sent out a party, like some of the soldiers to go with the doctor. They go into, they infiltrate the facility, and basically they all get basically fucked up in there. Basically, because they find other hybrid human kind of things, and they fuck them up in there, right? But yeah, basically that's the soldier storyline in there. It was throughout season 2. Now, the commander of the soldiers is basically showing symptoms as well. He starts showing basic symptoms. But yeah, that's basically this whole storyline in season 2 for the soldiers. Now, the second branching storyline is basically one of the girls from season 1, one of the young ones. I think she was around high school age at the time. But basically, I think 2 years have passed since then, right? I think it's about 2 years, right? So she basically sneaks out of the stadium, right? She gets out, and basically she's searching for someone that's basically been protecting her in the shadows, she mentions, or something like that. So she basically searches for someone that's been protecting her, I think she mentions, right? But on the way she's trying to find whoever this person is, she gets attacked by all these monsters right on the outside, right? And what happens is the the main character shows up and saves her, right? Now that's that storyline happening. Now, the third storyline, basically, as I mentioned before, one of the original survivors from season 1, she basically gives birth to a daughter. Now, this daughter is actually a half human, half monster. The thing is, she's got this ability where anything she touches, not anything, any human she touches, basically turns them into a monster instantly, and she can control them. So what happens is, basically her mother is trying to control like what she touches, who she meets and stuff like that, because she's worried about her daughter, turning people into monsters and stuff like that, right? But her daughter, she wants to be free and be free in the world and stuff like that, right? And then they have a falling out, between each other. Now, it's revealed in this storyline that the main character has actually been taking care of the daughter in this one. That's where that's where he's been this whole time, right? Because literally, like I said before, is that literally half this season, the main character is nowhere to be found, but it's revealed he's been taking care of her. That's what they reveal in like flashbacks and stuff like that. But yeah, that's basically what happens in season 2. So my thoughts for season 1 and season 2. To be honest with you, they were actually very good seasons. I really like them both. The show's actually pretty good. It's pretty entertaining. Like the way they told the story, they were pretty on point too. Well, there were some episodes that weren't as good as the rest. Yeah, but they were pretty on point, I know it's a bit of a long one, but now I can finally start talking about season 3. Which is literally the reason why I'm making this video, is literally to review season 3. So finally, I can get into it and start talking about it. So, Sweet Home season 3, the final season of the show. How is it? I'll get into it now. So in this season, what happens is that the main villain and the other hybrid humans that were in that facility, they basically find the stadium and they basically take over the whole stadium, because the thing is, you can't kill these things easily, so they basically they take over the whole stadium, right? Now, what's revealed is that the girl, the hybrid girl that I mentioned before, that whoever she touches, she turns into a monster. It's revealed that she is actually the daughter of the main villain. It's actually revealed that in this season. So yeah, so what happens is he's basically looking for his daughter, and his plan is that he wants to take over her body, because the way he views his daughter, she's basically she's got the perfect body for him, and so he can take over the world in a sense, right? Because he believes he's going to be invincible by taking over, because in his eyes, his daughter's like the perfect being, and he needs to take it over. That's basically the way he views it. Now, back at the facility, as when I was talking about the soldiers, back when I was talking about season 2, only one soldier survived, right? But he's like, badly hurt, whatever. Now, as he's trying to make his escape from this facility, he finds another person there, another infectee, that what they call them. Now, this infectee is very different from all the others, but I'll talk about that a little bit later on. You'll understand why he's different. Basically, all his face is scratched up and whatever. Now, he rescues him, and they both leave the facility, and they both end up in a church. Now, when I actually get inside the church, what happens is that that infectee tells the soldier not to leave the church, because he'll be well protected. No matter what happens, he'll be protected. And basically what happens to the infectee, he gets into a cocoon. It becomes like a cocoon, right? And basically one of the monsters, it breaks into the church, but then doesn't attack the guy. He just kneels before the cocoon. And he's thinking, oh no, what the hell is going on here? But the next day, the infected, he actually comes out, and it's actually revealed that it's actually the guy from season 1 that everybody thought was dead. So he's actually when I was talking about that girl from season 2, how she went to go looking for someone that was protecting her. When I was talking about season 2, that I didn't mention this before, but that's her brother, not her. They're not biological. I think they're both. They were both. They're not blood related, but they're like stepbrother and sister, right? And basically, it's revealed this him, but now he's talking about like what he is. He's different from the infectors, like what the main character and what the main villains are. he's saying that he's what he calls himself as a neo-human. So he's basically, well, basically what's revealed is basically when people turn into monsters, when they show symptoms and they turn into the monsters, right? Later on, what happens is they go into a cocoon, right, and they come out as what appears to be a normal human, but they're basically more intelligent. They can learn stuff. They're super strong, but they lack human emotions, right? That's basically what the brother has become, right? That's what's revealed in this season. Now back to the main character and the girl he saved, which pretty much the girl has a crush on him, right? Back to them. Now I've actually forgot to talk about this when I was talking about season 2, but basically at the end of season 2, what happens to them after he rescues them? Basically he finds that what I was talking about, that mother and the child, right? Now the hybrid kid, he infects the mother to become a monster because in her mind she thinks that she's gonna accept her if she's a monster as well. But obviously the mother goes crazy, right? Because she's a monster now. But the main character manages to heal heal and actually turn back the mother into a normal human again, right? But in doing that, he goes into a coma, right? And when he wakes up, right, there's like an alternate self. I mean, he's got like an alter ego that wakes up instead of him, right? And basically the alter ego, now he's violent, he's dangerous. He's basically like really dangerous, right? That's basically almost how the season 2 ends. But anyway, what happens in season 3 with them is that actually I forgot to mention this before, but the main character and the girl, that likes him, they basically run into another 3 characters. Now, one of them is one of the soldiers that came from the stadium. The other one is the hunter guy. And the hunter guy is with another girl, right? She's like high and shit, yeah. Basically the hunter guy dies because he basically turns into a monster, and there's that. And then there's immediately after that there's another monster that attacks. But then the main character, because he woke up with his alter ego, he like basically obliterates that monster, right? Now the alter ego self is obviously he's very dangerous, because he kills things without remorse. He doesn't give a shit, right? But what happens is that the girl that likes him, he can't bring himself to kill her. So they end up making a deal where that in 3 days, if she can't bring back the main consciousness of the main character, the alter ego self will take over. Right? That's the deal they make. But after that, what they do is they join forces and they go towards the stadium. Right? They walk towards the stadium. So on the way to the stadium, what happens is that, well, there's a few things that happen, but basically the main character, he captures one of the villains, and the villain tells him everything what's happening in the stadium because, the main bad guy, he took over. So but literally the main character starts dragging this guy literally all like across the street and everything, right? Because, his alter ego doesn't care because, he's violent. He just literally doesn't give a shit about anything, right? So like I said, there's a few things that happen, but eventually what happens, the guy from the soldier that came from the facility and that girl's brother, they end up. What happens is they end up because they're inside a military truck, so they end up ramming into them to separate the two. And the army guy, he goes after the villain to try to find a way to kill him, like literally shoot him in the head and try to kill him, right? But he can't because these hybrids they're hard to kill. And the girl's brother, because he's like a neo-human, is what they call it, because he's like he's a different type of mutation of whatever he is. He confronts the main character, and they end up in the bus to where they have like a confrontation and fight to test each other out. And basically, what happens is, that villain, he gets up and he uses his blood or something. Because his blood is like acid. Like if you've seen Alien, the movie Alien, where the blood's like acid. It's similar. It's kind of like the similar idea. He basically spills like his blood all over the truck. All over the bus where they're in, and he basically like traps them in the bus. So it's slowly melting the bus, right? Now, as they're trapped in the bus, now obviously the villain he escapes. But as they're trapped in the bus, what happens is the main character, he opens up, he punches a hole through the roof to where the girl's brother, he can just jump out. So that's what he does. He jumps out and he waits for the main character to find a way out. So basically, the rest of the team that are there, basically the soldier guy, the soldier guy that came from the city, he tells them we should go. Don't worry, leave them behind. They're just monsters. Because literally, the brother, he literally, like, it explains that he doesn't give a shit about his sister because he has no human emotions. So he literally doesn't care about her. So yeah, so basically he tells them, let's leave because there's no point of waiting for him. They're probably like they're saying he's probably the main character's probably gonna die in the bus and whatever. So they leave, but the girl, she decides to remain to stay behind with them. So yeah, so the others leave while the girl stays behind with the hybrids, her brother and the main character, right? But what happens with the main character? He ends up like in his own psyche to like basically his alter ego tells him what is it? Why do you care so much? Why am I like you? But then they end up like in his consciousness. They end up merging together in his consciousness to where the real main character, his real consciousness, emerges, and he breaks literally out of he literally severs the whole bus in half. He literally pushes it out of the way, severs it with that hand, with that mutated hand he has, which is like a spike thing, wing thing kind of thing, right? He literally like severs the whole bus and he gets out, right? So they end up traveling together, those three, right, to get to the stadium. Now, back at the stadium, that daughter that I mentioned is like that half human, half hybrid. She sneaks into the stadium, right, and she befriends the kid from season 1, right? They kind of befriend each other, right? And then her mother also sneaks into the stadium, and she finds her eventually, right? There's a few things that happen, but what happens at the end of his, she ends up finding it, and they try to escape together, right? With her and her daughter, they're trying to escape. But when they're in the sewers, the main villain finds out and obviously confronts them in the sewers. So what happens is basically he kills the mother and then takes the daughter and locks her up into like a quarantine kind of cage thing, right? And what happens is that kid from season 1, he finds her, and then he wants to help her escape, right? But then he gets offered to get turned into a monster by her, but he accepts. He accepts, and then he turns into this like this liquid kind of green thing. It's like this gooey liquid thing, right? That's what it turns into. Now, what happens is that she starts to infect everybody in the stadium, right? Literally turning everybody into monsters. Well, they don't turn into monsters. They turn into, they're still people, but they have milky eyes where they're being mind controlled, and they're kind of acting like zombies in a sense, right? Right, but they're being controlled by her. But anyway, what happens? There's a few things that happen, but at the end of it, she gets recaptured by the villain, by the main villain, by her dad again. She gets recaptured. Now, as all of this is happening at the same time, is that the group that was with the main character, the group that split off from the main character, they make it to the stadium and they sneak in, right? And they find out, what's going on and stuff like that, right? And the one that came from the facility that was with them, that came from the soldier, he goes to the military commander, tells him everything what happened and stuff like that, right? And he gives him the dog tags that, tells him all the boys are dead and all that, yeah? So the military commander has a plan to turn himself into like a hybrid monster human, right? With the help of that scientist that I mentioned before, right? So what they do is they capture one of the villain's henchmen, one of the girl. They capture her and they do this operation. They get this fluid thing, like this green fluid from her stomach or something, and the plan is to inject him with that fluid. But what happens is, as he's putting into the needle, when they were preparing to inject it into the commander, is that the commander tells her that that the main villain's daughter, she could turn anybody into a monster. And when he finds this out, he kind of freaks out and he swallows it himself. That fluid thing, or he basically like betrays him almost, right? And he said he's doing this because he wanted to turn himself into a monster and all this stuff, right? So there's a confrontation between these two. Now back to the main villain, right? He's literally like he's getting prepared, for the channel. What happens is for him to transfer himself into his daughter. He's that he basically needs to be in the brink of death for it to work, for him to leave his body, right? Well, that's what the doctor tells him, right? But then what happens is that when they're about to do that, is he kills his own henchman, and then he pushes the doctor into the fire because he knew that he was playing both sides. He knew, and basically, he was telling, "Oh, make me, I want to be a monster. Why can I not turn into a monster?" Basically, you don't deserve it. Just pushes him into the fire. The doctor basically burns to death. Now, what happens is that the main villain, he walks into the fire himself, and he comes out, and he obviously possesses his daughter. And yeah, he does actually end up possessing, taking over the body of his daughter. So as that is happening, the soldiers and obviously the commander they're secretly evacuating everyone from the stadium, and they're using the sewers kind of to get out of the stadium, right? And as they're making their escape, the commander he starts showing symptoms, right? And he's literally seconds away of turning into a monster, seconds away. Right, so what he does, right, he sacrifices himself, right, but then his body starts turning into ice, which turns into like an ice wall, right? It's literally the path where they need to go to escape the to leave the stadium, right? But the commander's consciousness is still there, right? So what happens is that the wall, humans can pass through it, right? But monsters are not allowed to pass through it, right? They're just not allowed to pass through it. So what happens is, as the humans, as they're going through it, what happens is the henchman of the villain, one of them tries to pass through, but he's not allowed to, right? But he gets found out, right? But as he gets found out, he panics and he starts, he tries to resist, right? So he throws all his acid, like his blood, because his blood, like I mentioned before, it's the same guy from before, right? His blood's like acid. So he sprays it basically. He fills up the whole room with this, trying to kill basically everyone, including himself, right? So one of the soldiers who's holding him, and the other hybrid girl that used to be the guy's henchman, but she was betrayed, and also it's the same girl that the scientists took out that vial, that green liquid thing. So that the same girl, I mean, she made a path for all the humans to escape, right? She made a path, but basically, yeah, all the humans escape. That girl and basically the henchmen, they stay behind. Obviously, they burn to death because of the acid, right? So the humans end up escaping. They leave the stadium. So after that, what happens is that the main character and the girl's brother, they make it to the stadium, right? And they see that, the whole place is empty and stuff, right? They also find, those people that got turned by the daughter, by the husk, if you can call them husks. Basically, they decide to split up to try to find the main bad guy. But then, what happens is that the main character finds the girl, the daughter, right? But he doesn't know that she's being possessed yet, right? So she leads him to the place where where the merger happened, right? In front of the campfire, and yeah, basically there is where they have their confrontation. So what happens is that the main character, the thing he uses to turn monsters back into humans, he basically uses that, and he ends up in her mind. And he basically tries to separate the two, right? And basically there's a confrontation, and then that's when the girl's brother, he throws a spike, right? And that spike hits the girl, and that's where the connection severs, right? And basically, the main character tells him that, don't kill her because she's being possessed and all that stuff, all right? And it basically tries to save her. And then there's a huge fight, but that's where the final confrontation happens. So during the final confrontation, what happens is that since the main villain actually has the body of his daughter, because he's got her powers as well. So what he does is he summons all the people that she was controlling to attack the main character, the main characters, right? So they manage to fend them off, but what happens is he gets stabbed, all right, and because if you're in the brink of death, he has to leave the body, right? So what happens? Yeah, so because she was in the brink of death, he leaves her body, and after there is an emotional moment with the main character and with the girl, right? There's an emotional moment because she's basically dying, right? That scene actually got me a little bit. Yeah. So anyway, basically, they start looking for the main villain, right? And what happens is he possesses a body. He actually possesses his original, not his original body, but the same body he was using before, right? And it's the guy from season one, right? That I mentioned before when I was talking about season one. When he possessed him, that guy's mind started coming back. His consciousness started coming back, and they were having like a consciousness battle. And then what happens is he starts crawling into the fire, like he starts crawling towards the fire, right? And what happens? He basically sacrifices himself to take out the bad guy, right? So he basically throws himself into the fire in a sense, right? To take out the main villain. Now, when he gets destroyed, here's the thing, unless I missed something here, but when he gets destroyed, I thought that his daughter wakes up in pain. Unless there's supposed to be I don't know if she survives, but you don't see her after that, after this. So I don't know if she survives or not, but unless if it's just an effect because I had a consciousness, because the main villain had like I don't know, some type of connection to that body. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm not sure if she survives or not. I probably missed something there, but yeah, I got a bit confused there after when I finished watching. But yeah, that's basically the end of the confrontation. So basically after that, some time passes after that, and what happens is the main character, he starts turning monsters back into humans again, right? And basically all the survivors meet up together, and yeah, so that they decide to go. So the main character, he takes them to where the neo humans are, right? And basically what happens is, look, this is literally the end scene, right? The ending. This is basically the ending. What I'm gonna say, right? So basically the ending is, the surviving humans and the neo humans find a coexistence to live together. Right, that's literally the ending. And I didn't actually mention this before, because I forgot to mention this, is that the girl that likes the main character, she started to, earlier on, she started turning into a monster. But what happens at literally the end scene, like the final scene of the whole series, like the final episode, the last scene, you see her as a neo-human. She's on the roof, walking up and down, like pacing up and down with the headphones on, and basically they're just watching or walking around. She's basically, because neo-humans, when they come out, they have no human emotions, right? But during this scene, here's what I noticed about the end scene, right? Is that the girl's brother, he originally had no human emotions, but in that scene, seeing his sister again, he starts to smile, and that is a real smile. Like neo-humans, they're starting to get their emotions back. So yeah, that's the thing I noticed about the ending. Anyway, yeah, that's it. It just basically ends with that. So yeah, I really actually like season 3. I really enjoyed it, and they actually wrapped up everything quite nicely, actually. Especially the last episode, like it had a lot of heart, especially the final moments. There was some heart put into it. Yeah, so everything wrapped up pretty nicely. I quite enjoy myself watching this. So my thoughts for the whole show, like literally from season 1 to season 3, we got a whole complete story. It's a whole complete story, which is a plus, because not many TV shows these days have even end their stories. Then there's a lot of them actually that don't end their stories, but this one did. He wrapped up everything nicely. So yeah, like I said, I enjoyed myself. The directing was good. The blood and gore was pretty decent. I wouldn't call this a horror though. It's not really a horror. I'll say it's more of a thriller than a horror. Thriller action. Yeah, that's what I'll say about this. Do I recommend this? Yes. If you like zombie apocalypse type movies, right? If like yeah, zombie apocalypse type movies or like apocalypse, like everything coming to an end by monsters or something like that, you'll definitely like this. You'll like this series, and it's on Netflix. So yeah, you can watch it on Netflix. So yeah, yeah, definitely watch this. I highly recommend it. Like, to be honest with you, Korean shows are turning better than American shows these days because see, with American shows, sometimes they don't even finish their stories. Like, you don't even get a complete product anymore. Like, they add politics into it. They don't finish their stories. The characters are unlikable because they push some ideology onto you. You know what I mean? Like with this, you're getting a full complete product. You know, you, you're immersed in the story. You like the characters. You know what I'm saying? You're getting a full complete. You're getting a full complete product with this. Like, I am definitely gonna review more Korean shows as well. Like, I'm even watching All of Us Are Dead, which I'm definitely gonna do a review on season 2 when it comes out. So yeah, watch out for that. So I will say this as well. I do apologize that I couldn't remember their names because Korean names are very hard for me to remember. I'm definitely gonna do better next time. So yeah, I do apologize again for that. So yeah, that's all from me. Like, subscribe, and thank you for watching.